Stephen Moffat has returned to Doctor Who, writing his first episode since 2017. But the question is, how good was his first episode back? G'day Whovians, and welcome back to my channel for this week's episode of Who Review. This week I'll be discussing episode 3 of the brand new series, which is titled Boom. This week's episode marked the return of former showrunner Stephen Moffat, which is something that I was very excited for. Before I jump into my review, make sure you leave a like and subscribe down below so you don't miss a new episode of Who Review every week. And as usual, this video does contain spoilers.
Spoilers?
So, Boom, the return of Stephen Moffat. Did I enjoy this story? Short answer, yeah, I really did. I love that this story wasted practically no time in throwing us straight into the war on Kastarian 3. Within the first few minutes, I was already sitting on the edge of my seat. I really loved the Doctor and Ruby's introduction in this story, the Doctor kind of running through the minefield with his action theme playing. Ncuti's Doctor's action theme is so good. And then the Doctor stood on the landmine, which basically set up the whole premise for this week's story. First off, I just want to quickly mention Ncuti's acting in this story. He was phenomenal. He's amazing each week, but I don't know, there was something about him in this story that was just... he was incredible. For me, I think he perfectly captured the emotion, the humour, the anger of the Doctor. And the same goes for Millie. I think that her and Ncuti were both truly outstanding in this story. Now, I loved Ruby's reaction to her first alien planet. It was quite funny that the Doctor simply forgot that this was her first planet. He was rather busy at the time, but it was such a sweet little moment. We saw a lot of emotion and a lot of tension between the Doctor and Ruby for the first time in their relationship in this episode, and I really enjoyed seeing these moments between the two of them. For me, it really helped to build the believability. Is that even a word? to build the believability of their friendship. The side characters in this story were beautifully written, and that's something I've always loved about Stephen Moffat's stories, and throughout Moffat's era, he always managed to create new characters that you kind of immediately just fell in love with. The concept of religion in this story was really interesting. Now, I'm not religious in any way, so I was a bit worried that this might come across as a bit of a lecture, but I liked how Moffat handled it in terms of the war itself. Now, one thing that I genuinely gasped at was Ruby being shot. Now, I didn't expect this at all, and this whole sequence was really well done. And even though you knew that Ruby was going to survive, it was still such a really scary and really intense moment. Again, in this moment, the emotion that Ncuti showed was incredible. And if there's any episode that's going to convince you that this man, he is the Doctor, this episode is it. And as I mentioned before, Ncuti was just phenomenal in this story. One thing that really stood out for me in this story was the special effects. I think they were really, really incredible. Now, I did think that the pacing in this story was a little bit odd in some moments, but it was nothing major to complain about. However, the overall story was interesting, not great, but it wasn't terrible. The cast and the intense nature of this story made it such a fantastic story. Overall, I think this story was really good and really enjoyable. For me, I thought that this story was much better than the first two episodes, and it really solidified that, Stephen Moffat is back. For the majority of this story, I was on the edge of my seat. This was a story that made me super nervous, but also super excited to see what was going to happen next. Boom. 7 out of 10. Next week's episode is titled 73 Yards, and from the next time trailer, it looks really interesting. It looks like it's going to be very much a companion-centered story, kind of like Turn Left, which I'm very much looking forward to. But what did you think of this week's episode of Doctor Who? Let me know in the comments down below.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Whovian Commonly YouTube channel. Cool.